Good afternoon. Back with another video on the You Can Ask That series. So again, just to kind of kick things off, the email address is youcanaskthat@gmail.com. And the point is to ask questions that you may not have felt comfortable asking other places, may have been told you shouldn't be asking, or things that you felt you should know or other people thought you should, or the questions that people don't like to answer as much. Some of the questions we've got, we're doing a Sunday school class with it, and we've talked about creation, we've talked about heaven and hell, we've talked about the end of times, we've talked about where things come from and who the authors are and all kinds of different things. One of the questions that we had was about where we got our Bible, where we got the books that are combined in here. And so I am going to give you a short and very inadequate answer today. A couple things to remember. The Bible that we have, this collection of writing, we're talking about written over 1,600 years from the earliest writings to the last writings, about 66 books. And I say about, I'll get into that in a little bit later here. It was written by about 40 different authors in 3 different languages on 3 separate continents. There's a lot going on. Now, many times we had groups that got together to decide what books were picked to go in the Bible. There's all kinds of framework around how to qualify what books and things. Some people get really excited about these, banned hidden Bible books. But most of them were done that way because literary criticism killed them. It would be written by it would be claimed to be written by someone who had died, 100 years before it was written, or is claimed to be written by someone, but it originated on a different continent than this person lived. Things like that. Literary criticism was applied, same as we do with other textbooks. There's stack height, you can look that up. All kinds of things that were used to pick these books. Now, also, there were several different councils that got together for various reasons. The King James even, the King James is a literary masterpiece, but it is also extremely political. It served a purpose. There was a reason behind it, a reason behind how they translated things. Am I going to use it as a study Bible? Absolutely not. But it's beautiful. And again, from a literature standpoint, it's a masterpiece. How the books came to be, the ones in each council looked at things and decided if the letters, if the books, if the history was there, could we accept that this was real? Could we accept the authorship and different things to make this canon, to make this here? Something to remember is that no one ever fully agreed on that. We settled the matter and then really didn't, for 100 years later. And even then, when we settled the matter, different countries, different regions and areas have slight variations in what books are included and what are not. If you were reading a Bible in Ethiopia, for instance, it contains different works than if you were reading a Bible in the United Kingdom. Also, if you're Catholic, you're probably most likely to be aware of the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha is the middle writing, so from the end of Malachi to the beginning of Matthew, that 400 or so year span of silence that wasn't silent. We have writings in there. Some of it is really weird, really crazy. There's reasons that it wasn't canonized. I look at almost everything, I look through the eyes of Judaism. It was their book long before it was ours, the Hebrew Bible, and I figured they're the experts on most things in the Hebrew Bible, and so I look there, and the Apocrypha, they believed, was valuable in teaching, but not canon. It was valuable, it wasn't, an inspired work. Now, with that said, we have examples of writers of our New Testament, quoting things from the Apocrypha, referencing from the Apocrypha. Jude mentions the book of Enoch. Jesus tells us that he is celebrating Hanukkah. He had gone to Jerusalem for Hanukkah. Hanukkah is nowhere in our Protestant Bible. The whole story of that comes from the in-between, the apocryphal time, and that's, the story of the Maccabees and all that. If you don't know it, it's powerful, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's fascinating. But again, Jesus is referencing that, even though that event does not occur in any of the books that we have in our kind of canonized Bible right now. Some of the books that we have in ours right now were really fought over about if it should be in there or not. Ruth and Esther were fought about at different times, largely because they were written by women, and we certainly can't have that. And also because they handle God really uniquely. They don't mention God directly. The points of them is you see the inner workings of God through everything, but God isn't specifically named and called out. It's an interesting style. Hebrews, the book of Hebrews in the New Testament, arguably the most theologically rich book in Scripture that we have, was argued about because it doesn't have an author's name attached to it. There wasn't an introduction or a conclusion that said emphatically who it was written by. Or maybe at some time it was, and people didn't like who it was written by, and it was taken out. Who knows? But it doesn't have a stated author. And so they weren't sure that they wanted to put it in there. It was sort of like, I talk about if I get an anonymous email telling me something, like it's file 13, I need you to attach your name. And so it didn't have a name, and so they weren't sure if they wanted it in. Thank God, quite literally, they did include it because it is beautiful and wonderful and deep. Another one, Song of Solomon, or Song of Songs, that one was often argued about and left out because it's an entire book about sex. Some people really try to do some gymnastics to make it about something else. It's not. If you want to draw the analogies, that's fine. Some of them work. Some of them, I don't know how you get there. But it's a book about sex. And again, one of the ways that we know that that is what it is Jewish boys weren't allowed to read Song of Solomon until they hit a certain age because it was a book about sex. And so that book was argued about whether it should be in or out or different things. And so the point of this very, inadequate video is hopefully to spur you on to go look, go find. Don't take my word or anyone else's word for it. Go look and see. Most people know about, there was this council and they put all the books together and then that's how we got it. There was, and then there was another one and another one, and then there was Ethiopia, and then there were these different places and regions, and then, they had a canon and they had a canon. The Bible that we have right now, decided upon, isn't remarkably old, not nearly as old as you think. The compilation, the Torah, the first 5 books, the books of Moses, those are the ones that obviously have been around the longest and the most studied. The New Testament, when these people were writing these letters, they were letters that they were writing back and forth. We're missing a lot of those because we just don't have them. The letter to the church at Ephesus talks about another letter that was written to them, so we just have one of them. 1st and 2nd Corinthians is probably actually like 2nd and 4th or 5th Corinthians. There were letters going back and forth, and they're referenced. We only have one side of the conversation. So it's like reading, coming into a group text, but only reading one person's words. You're not getting any of the rest of the conversation. That's what a lot of these letters are. They're one-sided. We don't get the back and forth. Go look for yourself. See what you find. Like everything else, it's safe to wonder. It's safe to have questions. It's safe to look. It's exciting. It's interesting. I encourage you to do that. See what you think, and pay attention to what kind of sticks out to you. What do you think about what you find? What curiosities does that bring up? And when it brings up other questions related to it or otherwise, send them my way. And maybe it'll get a video. Bye, guys.